Hello, friend. I'm glad you stopped by. Looks like the night has already settled over the town, and the moon is swaying outside the window like an old lantern. Let me tell you a story. It was a long time ago, the summer of 1956. A small town called Apple Creek in the state of Ohio. I was just a kid back then, maybe 10 or 11. Everything seemed bigger than it really was. The houses taller, the trees denser, the summer hotter, and the ice cream sweeter. But more than anything, I remember the quiet. And Apple Creek knew how to be silent. Not the kind of silence that's empty, but the kind that's full of life. You could hear the wind rustling through the cornfields, the creaking of the porch swing, the distant call of frogs near the church pond. We had one main store, Henry's. Everyone just called it Henry's, though the sign above the door said Henderson's General Store. That place smelled like coffee, newspaper ink, and a hint of peppermint candy, which Henry kept in a big glass jar right on the counter. I used to stop by every day, sometimes with my mom. She'd buy flour, salt, maybe a spool of thread, and Henry would always hand me a penny or two so I could get a piece of toffee or a bazooka bubble gum. I'd sit on the porch out front and read the tiny comic strip inside the wrapper like it was a treasure. Mornings in our house started with the smell of bacon. Dad would wake up early, brew coffee in a metal percolator, and sit at the kitchen table with the newspaper. The windows were always open, and the breeze carried the smell of fresh cut grass. Mom cooked at the stove in a heavy cast iron skillet, and I'd sit at the table listening to the radio. Something was always playing Doris Day's "'Cause Sarah, Sarah," or maybe Elvis, who we were just starting to hear more and more about. During the day, we ran barefoot through the streets. The roads in Apple Creek weren't paved, they were gravel, so we'd hop from shadow to shadow under the trees, trying not to scratch up our feet. Sometimes we went down to the creek. It was shallow, with smooth rocks we could stand on. The water was warm from the sun, and yellow leaves floated on top like little boats. We'd build tiny rafts from twigs and send them drifting downstream like they were off to faraway lands. And in the evenings, everything slowed down. Dad would sit out on the porch with the paper. Mom would bring out a cup of sweet tea. I'd sit on the steps and listen to the neighbors talking across fences. Someone's clock would tick in their living crack open somewhere down the street, and the breeze would stir the dust. Now and then, a car would roll by slowly, almost like it didn't want to disturb the peace. It was a black Ford, shiny like licorice ice cream. It looked like the future to us. Inside, the radio played faintly, and if we were lucky, we'd catch a few words of the new Patsy Cline song. Some nights I couldn't fall asleep, so I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, just listening. You hear that? Old houses know how to talk. They breathe with the night. Floorboards creak like someone's walking gently down the hallway. The attic sighs with the wind from the kitchen. The clock ticks steady as a heartbeat. I used to think the whole town was asleep with me, that Apple Creek was alive, and that it watched over us from bad dreams, from worry, from time itself. Even now, when I close my eyes, I hear that summer evening. I hear the shop door open and the bell jingle. I hear my mom calling me home. I see the warm light in neighbors' windows. I see my dad nodding to me from the porch. I climb the steps, breathe in the scent of tea and something baking in the oven, and my heart gets quiet, just like it did back then, just like in that little town where everything was safe and everything was okay. Good night. May you dream of Apple Creek, a little town where all is calm and all is well.